Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
Saw her today at the reception, a glass of wine in her hand. Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Eric Hellberg, and yes, man, here you can always get what you want. And we know we're going to try sometime. Oh yeah, living a month and a day, man. And what are we going to talk about today? Has the church made Christ an adulterer? Follow me. Let's pick up from there. According to Rabbi Manis Friedman, we have made marriage, well, let's back up. Ultimately, the goal of marriage and thinking outside of yourself with the continuity of yourself is simply to make the partner better, but in reality, make you better than you would be on your own. You become more than what you currently are. But essentially what we have reduced it down to today, no different in a relationship, no different than marriage, no different than church, or else we would not have marriages crumbling, churches faltering, but even more endemic, churches popping up everywhere, new marriages popping up everywhere. Yep, whether you're churched, unchurched, the demise is the same and gets disproportionately higher. And we just keep getting more and more churches, and more people obviously must be attending. So I would say that church and marriage are one and the same, and that you go and or you enter it, both realms, to become more than what you are. However, we have reduced that experience, whether it is on a Sunday or for a lifetime, into getting what you want, which means the satisfaction of our needs. And if we are going to reduce this down like a cooking sauce into that, ultimately, it will belie someone else and or be at their expense, and it will not be pleasant. In fact, it'll be downright manipulative and or abusive, and you may be better off without it. Certainly in a marital environment, it is not going to be pleasant for the other one who is having the repeated request to meet my needs. The church body is going to experience, what would we call that? Disharmony, almost like a cancerous lesion once a member becomes disenchanted and or dissatisfied and has to tell everyone about it. The church would be better off if they would just leave. Or what happens in both these scenarios? Someone leaves a marriage, they go elsewhere. Someone leaves a church, they go elsewhere. Within a marriage, taking on all the different dynamics, becoming something new all the time to meet this exhaustive list of wants and needs. It's almost as if you're serving multiple people. That's adulterous in and of itself. Well, when the church doesn't comply with what it is you want, maybe in the youth pastor, maybe in the Wednesday night service, maybe the pastor just doesn't get jiggy enough, not enough dry ice, not enough guitar solos. Well, you go somewhere else too. And maybe since we have more churches, and we have more people going there, we have become a more adulterous culture. And if Christ is exhorting us as men to love our wives as he loved the church is his body. Well, who is it that Christ is having to love? A multitude of many, in a multitude of many ways, and most of them disenchanted. So have we made Christ adulterous? A very interesting question, is it not? Let's look at the numbers. We know that 60% roughly now of church marriages, first-time Christian marriages, fail. Okay. We know that 75% of the time that it is women. Now I know women have been oppressed since the millennia. Therefore, they're just simply making up for everything. Okay, well that's cool. Where were all the divorces back then? Oh, we know. People underwent ungodly things. There was the ability to be gone. There was the ability to leave. Didn't have a choice in churches. Okay. Well, if 75% of the women are the ones that are filing for divorce and or pushing the husband to file, and we know that 80% of affairs get kindled, meaning the fire starts in the workplace, and more women are working than ever before. In fact, in many cases, that is their new kingdom. Well, there is a correlation. It's about having needs met instead of being in a respectful relationship that is steady. Remember me talking about stability? And then when you get into the church aspect of it, what is it that the congregation and or the parish and or the people want? Well, if you don't know, you just simply ask them, right? So you can find out. We're always looking for new members. Church is a business. Marriage is a contract, because if you're not going to provide what it is they have expressed that they want, they will find another church that will. So in the aspect of marriage, stability isn't good enough. We're going to place conditions warranted solely based upon wants. Well, if you would just do this, okay. Well, that need is now met if in fact it was a need. Is that it? Well, typically not, because the very fact that it's being asked tells you that it is not going to be satisfied. It does not simply stop there. And other churches offer a varying degree of services. We can go there. And since we're Christ's body, Christ will be there too, will he not? Love your wives as Christ loved the church, but it becomes increasingly more complex. What happened to simply studying, meditating upon, and receiving the word? No difference than the stability in a relationship. Let's unpack this a little bit more. Society has a new buzz phrase, and I would venture to tell you that in fact there is a lot of truth to it. What is it? Narcissism. Oh yeah, it's become as pervasive as the center line on a highway. Well, let's look. What does Timothy say? 2 Timothy chapter 3. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. Sound like anyone you know? Is that in fact our church today? Have you ever spent some time with your church members? Oh, Eric, come on. That's slanderous, blasphemous. Well, the ones who are doing it right, I would tell you that it goes back to earlier in this episode. They hearken to simple stability in a relationship, safety, all the attributes therein. In the church, the word is simply good enough. They haven't introduced this complexity of wants, desires, and need with the expectation of being satisfied in a relationship in order for it to even survive. That criteria has not been placed upon your attendance at a church, by which, if it is not met, you leave and go elsewhere. And in fact, in the relationship, you threaten the loved one. If this, then not this. In the church, you threaten either the board and or the pastor. If not this, then this. So yes, the ones that are doing it right, whether it's relational and or church, are the ones whereby they are content and satisfied with what is simple. They are not exhorting others to provide them more. So in that respect, maybe Timothy did render a definition of narcissism. Let's go backwards in the episode so that we can now move forward. We said that women have spoken about the fact that in the past, isn't that modern day feminism? The reversal of roles, order in the church. And because of all that, women have been trained to not reflect on themselves, meaning internally. Now, men are very simple creatures. And given our time, we will certainly look inward. It actually comes naturally when you are remiss from external strife. But if a woman is now told that there is no accountability for them, they're not reflecting inward because of all this past projection, or let me say this, past oppression. They are now in the need to project, aggressively put themselves out there. And if you can't reflect on yourself, well, that means the answer is always external. Let's get into the pew of the church now. Give me something. Instead of me receiving something that is already there, meaning the word, give me the external, the show, right? Entertain me, both in marriage relationship and also in the church. So if a woman now has zero accountability, let's go into what Sadiya Khan says. We've moved from Timothy, i.e. the church, to secular society, a female psychologist. She says that now if a woman does not feel 100% soothed, meaning the husband must create this environment, then the man is now held accountable for that. What does that mean? Well, what it means is maybe He's the narcissist. I'm now being manipulated because I don't feel soothed. I'm in church and I don't feel satisfied. Am I being gaslit? Have I been led to believe that I really shouldn't feel this way? I'm not content at church. I'm not content with my significant other. Why? It's because of he, instead of perhaps I. In fact, we have created a whole marketplace in the world now that caters to this entitled, wounded woman. And isn't that what a narcissist is in the first place? Nothing more than a depraved, wounded person. But now it is being exemplified. The entitled, wounded woman is really a narcissistic woman, projecting themselves onto everyone else. And if that is the case, let's then open up the truth about our new emboldened female counterparts. They engage in more infidelity. You can say that matrimonially, meaning in the form of affairs, whether they're emotional and or physical. And it would also serve to show that the same is true of their behavior in church. They may be equally as fickle. And if they are in the marketplace, workplace more now than ever before, and 80% of all these types of transgressions originate there where there is commonality. And let's step down a few percentage basis points. And if they are initiating 75% of these divorces and or pushing their partner for them, and for what reason? Same reason that people leave churches. They no longer see value in that institution. We'll go find another one. They no longer find value in that man. And why? Because they are not giving me something that I want, and or more of what I want for me. And finally, we just discussed that going towards 60% of Christian marriages, meaning churched marriages, either a couple began that journey within the church and or both call themselves believers, are crumbling by the wayside. Yet, husbands are called to love their wife as Christ loves the church. Well, you have singles in church, but the bodies of most church congregations and or parishes are made up of married people. Therefore, the church is broken. It is Christ's body. So who is it that he is having to love? A multitude of people. A multitude of different roles, meeting the exaltation of self-serving, selfish needs, i.e. Timothy's narcissism, i.e. an adulterous world, i.e. an adulterous people. So have we made Christ an adulterer in our worship of him? Well, in our worship of ourselves, we have asked him to do so. So until next time on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast, I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.
Until next time, like and subscribe to the Comfortable in Chaos podcast.